The curvy nurse saved a dying stranger, then learned he ruled the city's most feared mafia. Thumbnail text: She saved the Mafia King. Part 1. At 2:13 in the morning, someone left a dying man outside the emergency entrance of St. Vincent's Hospital. No car screeched away. No frightened companion shouted for help. The security camera showed only a black sedan rolling through the rain, its rear door opening, and a broad-shouldered figure collapsing onto the pavement before the vehicle disappeared into the darkness. Nurse Elena Marquez found him 3 minutes later. She had been halfway through a cup of burnt coffee when the alarm sounded at the admissions desk. By the time she reached the entrance, rain had soaked through the shoulders of her navy scrubs, dark curls clinging to her cheeks. The stranger lay on his side beneath the harsh white lights. Blood spread across his tailored shirt. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyelids lifted. His eyes were grey, clear despite the pain, and far too calm for a man bleeding onto concrete. "Don't call the police," he said. Elena pressed 2 fingers to his throat. His pulse fluttered beneath her touch. "That's your first concern? It should be yours." His voice was low, controlled, almost cold. Then his body went slack. Elena shouted for a trauma team. Within seconds, the entrance became a blur of wheels, gloves, clipped orders, and red-streaked gauze. She climbed onto the lower rail of the gurney as they rushed him inside, keeping pressure over the wound beneath his ribs. "No identification," an orderly said. "No wallet either," Elena replied. Dr. Samuel Reed cut through the ruined shirt. A bullet had entered near the man's left side, but there was another injury beneath the blood, a narrow surgical scar recently healed. Elena noticed it because the scar did not belong where it was. Someone had operated on him before. Someone who had known exactly where to cut. "Pressure's dropping," Reed said. The stranger's hand closed around Elena's wrist. His grip was shockingly strong. "Room 7, he whispered. "What?" "Don't let them take me to room 7. The monitor began screaming. His fingers loosened. Elena looked toward the corridor. Trauma room 7 stood empty, its doors open beneath a flickering light. "Take him to 5, she ordered. Dr. Reed gave her a sharp look. 7 is closer." He reacted to the number, 5. There was no time to argue. They turned the gurney. As the doors to room 5 swung shut, a ceiling panel inside room 7 exploded. Glass and plaster crashed onto the bed where the stranger would have been lying. For half a second, nobody moved. Then the entire emergency department erupted. Security locked the doors. Patients were pushed away from the damaged room. Dr. Reed stared through the observation window, his face drained of color. Elena looked down at the unconscious man. He had known. While the surgical team prepared him for the operating room, a hospital administrator pulled Elena aside. "What exactly did he say?" "That someone might try to kill him. That isn't what you told security." "I told them he warned me about room 7. Administrator Collins lowered his voice. "You will not repeat that to anyone else." Elena studied him. He was sweating despite the cold air. A man was nearly crushed by a rigged ceiling panel. It could have been structural failure. In one specific trauma room. His jaw tightened. "Go change your scrubs, Nurse Marquez." She did not move. Across the department, 2 men in dark suits entered through the secured doors. Neither wore a hospital badge. Collins saw them and stepped in front of Elena. "You need to leave." "Who are they?" "Family. They arrived awfully fast for relatives of a man with no identification." One of the men turned. A pale scar crossed his chin. His gaze settled on Elena, then dropped to the blood on her hands. He said something to his companion. Both started toward her. Elena walked away before they reached the desk. She did not run. Running attracted attention, and attention was dangerous when you did not know which side of the room had already been bought. She slipped into the women's locker room, locked herself in a stall, and pulled out her phone. There was one missed call from an unknown number. The voicemail contained no voice, only breathing. Then 3 soft taps. Elena replayed it. Tap, tap, tap. The same rhythm the stranger had made against her wrist while they wheeled him past room 7. A warning, or a signal. She deleted the message, changed into clean scrubs, and returned through the rear corridor. The operating room doors were closed. A red light glowed above them. On a bench nearby sat an elderly woman in a faded green coat. Her silver hair was pinned neatly at the nape of her neck, and both hands rested over a wooden cane. "You're the nurse who found him," she said. Elena stopped. "Do you know the patient?" The woman's gaze moved to the security camera in the corner. "I knew his mother." "That's not what I asked." A faint smile touched the woman's mouth. "No, it rarely is." She rose with difficulty and held out a small brass key. Elena did not take it. "What does it open?" "Something men have killed to find." "Then you should give it to the police." The woman's smile disappeared. "Some of them have killed for it too." Footsteps sounded from the stairwell. The elderly woman pressed the key into Elena's palm, closed her fingers around it, and leaned close enough for Elena to smell lavender. "He trusted you when he had no reason to trust anyone. That will make you valuable. I don't even know his name. You will." The stairwell door opened. Elena glanced toward it. When she looked back, the bench was empty. The woman had vanished into a service elevator at the far end of the corridor. The doors closed before Elena could follow. A man emerged from the stairwell, wearing a charcoal suit and no expression. He was older than the 2 men downstairs, perhaps 50, with iron-grey hair and a posture that belonged to a soldier. "Ms. Marquez." She slipped the key into her pocket. "That depends on who's asking." "My name is Victor Hale. I represent the patient." "Family?" "No." "Lawyer?" "Sometimes." He looked at the operating room doors. "Will he live?" "You know I can't discuss a patient's condition." Victor's gaze returned to her. "You already saved his life twice tonight." "Once. The ceiling was luck." "He does not believe in luck. He's unconscious." Mr. DeLuca forms opinions quickly. The name landed between them. Elena had heard it before. Everyone in Chicago had. Adrian DeLuca owned hotels, shipping companies, nightclubs, construction firms, and enough politicians to make rumors sound like public records. Newspapers called him a private investor. Detectives called him untouchable. People in Elena's neighborhood lowered their voices when they said his name at all. She kept her face still. "Your patient is Adrian DeLuca." Victor watched her reaction with unsettling care. "Does that change how you intend to treat him?" "No." "Good answer. It wasn't for you." The operating room light went dark. Dr. Reed stepped into the corridor, pulling off his surgical cap. He made it through. The bullet missed the spleen by less than an inch. "We repaired the internal bleeding." Victor exhaled through his nose. It was the only sign he had been worried. "He'll need close monitoring," Reed continued. "And he stays here, no private transfer until he's stable." "That will not be possible." "It isn't a negotiation." Victor glanced toward the camera. The red indicator light had gone out. Elena followed his gaze. At the same moment, every light in the corridor flickered. A fire alarm sounded on the floor below. Dr. Reed cursed. "Not tonight." Victor reached beneath his jacket. Elena caught the movement. "Don't." He paused with his hand near the weapon concealed at his side. A hospital transporter rounded the corner, pushing an empty wheelchair. He wore a surgical mask, blue cap, and St. Vincent's identification badge. Elena almost looked away. Then she noticed his shoes. Black leather, polished. No one working an overnight hospital shift wore shoes like that. The transporter reached the operating room doors. "Patient transfer," he said. Dr. Reed frowned. "I didn't order one." The man pulled a suppressed pistol from beneath the folded blanket on the wheelchair. Victor moved first. He shoved Elena behind the nurse's station as two muted shots tore through the wall. Dr. Reed dropped to the floor. Victor fired once. The attacker staggered but did not fall. Elena crawled toward the emergency switch beneath the desk and slammed her palm against it. Steel fire doors crashed down across the corridor, separating the gunman from the operating room. A bullet struck the descending barrier. Then silence. Victor pulled Elena to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "No." He checked anyway, his hands moving over her shoulders and arms with brisk efficiency. Dr. Reed rose, pale and furious. "What the hell is happening?" Victor ignored him, his attention fixed on Elena's scrub pocket. The brass key had slipped halfway out. His face changed. Not fear. Recognition. "Where did you get that?" Elena closed her hand over it. "An old woman gave it to me." "What old woman?" "She said she knew Adrian's mother." Victor's composure cracked. "Describe her." Before Elena could answer, the operating room doors opened behind them. Adrian DeLuca lay beneath a white sheet, his skin colorless against the pillow. An oxygen tube rested beneath his nose. His eyes should have remained closed beneath the sedatives. Instead, they opened. His gaze found Elena, then the key in her hand. The monitor beside him accelerated. Victor stepped closer. "Adrian?" DeLuca ignored him. "Where?" he asked Elena, each word dragged through pain. "Did you find my mother's key?" Elena stared at him. "The woman who gave it to me said she knew your mother." His grey eyes hardened. "My mother has been dead for 22 years. Behind the steel fire door, 3 slow knocks echoed through the corridor. Tap, tap, tap. The 3 knocks came again. Tap, 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 tap. Victor raised his pistol toward the steel fire door. "Get him into recovery," he ordered. Dr. Reed planted himself beside Adrian's gurney. "You don't command my staff. The man on the other side of that door came here to finish what the bullet started. And moving a post-operative patient could kill him." Adrian's eyes remained on Elena. "The key," he said. His voice was weaker now, but the demand beneath it had not softened. Elena closed her fingers around the brass. "You can ask about it after your blood pressure stops trying to disappear." For one quiet second, Adrian DeLuca looked almost offended. Then the corner of his mouth shifted. It was not a smile. It was the memory of one. The monitor dipped again. Dr. Reed pushed medication into Adrian's fore and waved the recovery team forward. "Now," before he decides to interrogate the entire floor. Victor stayed beside the gurney as they moved. Elena followed until he blocked her path. "You've done enough. There was an attempt on my patient's life inside my hospital. He is no longer your concern. He became my concern when someone dumped him outside my emergency room." Victor lowered his voice. "Ms. Marquez, whoever arranged tonight knows your face. And sending me away makes that safer?" His silence answered her. Behind the fire door, metal scraped against metal. The gunman was trying to force it open. Victor looked toward the sound, then back at Elena. "Stay with Adrian. You just told me to leave. I have reconsidered." How reassuring. He handed her a small black radio. "Channel 3. Speak only if necessary." "And where are you going?" "To learn who is knocking." Victor disappeared through the stairwell with 2 armed men Elena had not seen arrive. That unsettled her more than the gunfire. Adrian was placed in a private recovery suite at the end of the surgical wing. The room had no exterior windows, one guarded entrance, and a secondary door leading into a supply corridor. It was the closest thing St. Vincent's had to a bunker. Elena checked the monitors herself. His pulse had steadied. His skin remained cold. She adjusted the blanket over him and felt his hand move beneath it. "Still here?" he asked. "You sound disappointed. I expected Victor to remove you. He tried, and failed. People keep making the mistake of thinking I'm easy to order around." Adrian studied her through heavy eyelids. His face had sharpened with blood loss, revealing the hard angles beneath the composure. He was younger than Elena had imagined from the newspaper photographs. 37, perhaps 38. A thin line of silver touched one temple. "Open your hand," he said. "No. That key belongs to my family. An unidentified woman gave it to me before someone tried to shoot you." "She was not unidentified to you. You saw her. Silver hair, green coat, wooden cane, lavender perfume." Adrian's gaze shifted toward the ceiling. Something passed over his face and vanished. "Did she have a scar?" "Where?" "Her left thumb." Elena thought back to the woman's hand, closing over hers. "Yes, a white line across the joint." Adrian shut his eyes. The monitor quickened by 4 beats. "You know her." "I know the dead woman she is pretending to be." Before Elena could question him, the radio crackled. Victor's voice came through in fragments. "Attacker gone. Blood trail ends near laundry access. Lock." Static swallowed the rest. Then another voice replaced his. "Miss Marquez." Elena froze. Adrian's eyes opened. The voice continued through the radio, calm and male. "You are holding property that does not belong to you." Adrian held out his hand. She gave him the radio instead. "Who is this?" he asked. A soft laugh came through the speaker. "Good evening, Adrian." The color left his face. Not from pain this time. Elena watched his fingers tighten around the device. "You're dead," he said. "People keep saying that." The connection ended. For several seconds, the room contained only the rhythm of the heart monitor. Elena took the radio from Adrian before he crushed it. "Who was that?" "A man named Luca Ferretti." "That means nothing to me." "It should mean nothing to anyone. He died in a prison transport fire 6 years ago." "And you believed it?" "I saw his dental records." Elena crossed her arms. "You say that as though forged records would be unusual in your world." His eyes narrowed. "You have opinions about my world. I have opinions about men who bring assassins into hospitals. I did not bring them. They followed you. That distinction matters. Not to the patient in room 12 whose surgery was delayed because someone fired a gun in the corridor." Adrian looked away. Through the walls came the muffled sound of alarms and running feet. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. "How many people were hurt?" Elena studied him before answering. "One attacker. No hospital staff that I know of." His shoulders lowered by a fraction. That small release told her more than any denial could have. The door opened. Victor entered with blood on his shirt and no visible wound. Adrian noticed it immediately. "Whose?" "The attacker's. You let him escape. He had help." Victor placed a hospital identification badge on the bedside table. The photograph showed a young man with reddish hair and a shy smile. Elena recognized him. "Daniel Price," she said. "He works in patient transport." "Worked," Victor replied. Her stomach tightened. "What happened to him?" "We found him in a laundry bin 2 floors down." Adrian's expression turned still. "Alive?" Victor did not answer quickly enough. Elena stepped closer. "Alive?" "No." She turned away. Daniel had once carried an elderly patient's suitcase 6 blocks after his shift because the woman could not afford a taxi. He kept peppermints in his pocket for frightened children. Last Christmas, he had worked 16 hours so a co-worker could be home with her newborn. Now his badge had been used by the man who tried to murder Adrian. Elena pressed both hands against the edge of the sink. Behind her, Adrian said, "His family will be compensated." She looked at him through the mirror. Compensated? They will never worry about money. That does not give them back their son. No. His answer was quiet. No defense. No excuse. That stopped the anger she had prepared. Victor removed a sealed evidence bag from inside his jacket. A torn scrap of paper lay within it. The attacker had this stitched into his sleeve. He held it beneath the light. 3 names had been typed on the paper. Adrian DeLuca, Victor Hale, Elena Marquez. Elena read hers twice. "That's impossible." Victor's stare did not move. "Someone knew you would find him." "How?" "Your shift schedule may have been accessed. I wasn't supposed to work tonight. I covered for another nurse after her son got sick." Adrian's attention sharpened. "Who asked you to cover?" "Rachel." "Full name?" "Rachel Collins." Victor glanced toward the door. "Related to the administrator?" "His daughter." The room went silent. Elena remembered Collins blocking her view when the suited men entered. His insistence that Room 7's collapse had been structural, the sweat at his collar. "He knew," she said. Victor reached for the radio. "Find Collins." A guard answered immediately. "Administrator's office is empty." "What about his daughter?" "Her apartment was cleared out. Neighbors saw her leave with luggage yesterday." Elena felt something cold settle beneath her ribs. Rachel had called at 6:40 that evening, crying because her 6-year-old son had supposedly been taken to urgent care. There was no son. Rachel had no children. Elena had never questioned the story because Rachel had sounded terrified. Someone had chosen Elena. Not because she happened to be there. Because she was meant to be. Adrian pushed himself higher against the pillows. Pain crossed his face, but he ignored it. The key. Elena removed it from her pocket and placed it on the blanket between them. Under the brighter light, she saw details she had missed in the corridor. A tiny serpent was carved along the shaft. Its body curled around 3 letters. Victor's head turned. SMD. Adrian touched the initials with one finger. "Sofia Maria DeLuca," he said. "My mother." "What does it open?" "A deposit box beneath the old Central Union Bank." Victor's head turned. That branch was demolished. The public branch was. Adrian lifted the key. "My father built a private vault beneath it. My mother discovered what he kept there." "What did she find?" Elena asked. "Records. Payments, names. Enough evidence to destroy half the government of this city and every criminal family tied to mine." Victor's jaw tightened. "You told me the vault was empty." "My father told everyone it was empty." "And your mother?" Adrian looked at the brass key resting in his palm. She planned to expose him. The monitor continued its steady rhythm. Elena already knew the answer to her next question, but she asked it anyway. What happened to her? She drove off a bridge before she could reach the district attorney. "You don't believe it was an accident?" "I was 15. I watched someone disable her brakes." Victor stared at him. "You never told me that." "I never told anyone." A knock sounded at the door. One of the guards opened it only after checking the camera. A young woman stood outside wearing a soaked wool coat. Her blonde hair had come loose from its braid, and there was a bruise along her jaw. Elena recognized her from the staff directory. Rachel Collins. She stepped into the room, trembling. "I didn't know they were going to kill Daniel." Elena moved toward her. You lied to me. Rachel's eyes filled. They made me switch your shift. Who? My father. Victor closed the door behind her. Where is he? Rachel reached inside her coat. Every guard raised a weapon. She withdrew a white envelope. My father told me to give this to Elena if Adrian survived. Elena took it carefully. Her name was written across the front in black ink. Inside was a photograph. It showed Elena, at 5 years old, standing beside her mother on a beach in Puerto Rico. A third person had been torn from the picture, leaving only one pale hand resting on Elena's shoulder. On the back, someone had written a date and 6 words. Ask Adrian who your father was. Elena looked up. Adrian had seen the message. For the first time since she found him bleeding in the rain, the Mafia boss appeared unable to hide what he felt. He knew the answer. Elena held the photograph so tightly, the torn edge cut into her thumb. Who was my father? Adrian did not answer. Rachel stood near the door, shaking beneath her wet coat. Victor watched Adrian with a stillness that felt more dangerous than anger. Elena stepped closer to the bed. You knew my name before tonight, didn't you? Adrian's eyes moved from the photograph to her face. No. Then why do you look like that? Because I knew the man who wrote those words. She turned the picture over again. The handwriting was narrow and precise. My mother never spoke about my father. She said he died before I was born. She lied. The words landed hard. Elena's chin lifted. You don't get to say that so casually. Adrian pushed the blanket aside. Dr. Reed had warned him not to move, but he swung his legs toward the floor anyway. Sweat appeared along his brow before his feet touched the ground. Victor stepped forward. You'll tear the sutures. Bring the car. You're not leaving. Adrian looked at him. Victor held his stare for 2 seconds, then touched the radio at his collar. Elena moved between them. No one is going anywhere until I get an answer. Adrian's hand closed around the bed rail. The effort of standing had drained what little color remained in his face. Your father was Gabriel Marquez. Elena waited. The name was hers. Familiar, yet empty. What was he to you? Adrian's jaw shifted. My father's accountant. Rachel gave a soft, frightened sound. Victor's expression hardened. Gabriel Marquez was more than an accountant. Adrian looked at him sharply. Victor continued. He controlled every hidden ledger in the DeLuca organization. Shell companies, political payments, police payrolls, offshore accounts. Elena looked from one man to the other. My father worked for the Mafia. He worked against it, Adrian said. The room seemed to tilt. He sat again before his knees gave way, one hand pressed to his side. When my mother decided to expose my father, Gabriel helped her copy the records. They planned to deliver everything to a federal prosecutor. And then she died. Yes. What happened to him? Adrian's eyes stayed on hers. He disappeared the same night. Elena's voice became quiet. My mother said he was dead. We believed he was. Rachel backed toward the wall. No, she whispered. Everyone turned. Her face had gone pale beneath the bruise. My father said Gabriel was alive. Victor crossed the room in 2 strides. When? Last week. I heard him arguing with someone in his office. He said, Marquez survived the river. Elena looked at Adrian. What river? He did not blink. The bridge where my mother's car went down. A cold pressure closed around Elena's chest. The photograph slipped from her fingers and landed face up on the floor. Adrian bent to retrieve it. His wound pulled. He caught the edge of the mattress, breath breaking through his teeth. Elena reacted before she could stop herself. She braced one hand against his shoulder and checked the dressing beneath his shirt. Fresh blood had begun to stain the gauze. "You tore something?" "It's superficial. You have no idea what that word means." She pressed the call button, but nothing happened. The panel was dark. Then the overhead lights went out. Emergency lamps filled the room with a dull red glow. Victor raised his weapon. The guards outside shouted. A burst of gunfire rattled through the corridor. Rachel screamed. Elena pushed Adrian flat and dragged the mobile medication cabinet across the door. Victor overturned a metal table behind it. "Supply exit," he said. The rear door opened into darkness. A figure stood on the other side. Victor fired. The figure dropped. Another man appeared behind him and threw something into the room. A silver cylinder rolled beneath the bed. Elena saw the vented cap. Gas. She snatched a folded blanket from the chair, covered the cylinder, and shoved it beneath the medication cabinet. White vapor leaked around the edges. Victor pulled Rachel toward the supply corridor. Adrian caught Elena's wrist. "Go. You can't walk." "I can." He tried. He could not. Elena hooked his arm across her shoulders. He was much heavier than he looked, his body solid despite the blood loss. She planted her feet and lifted. For 1 second, surprise crossed his face. "Don't make me regret this," she muttered. Together, they staggered into the supply corridor. Victor covered their retreat. Behind them, someone rammed the main door hard enough to bend its hinges. The service hall smelled of bleach and hot wiring. Emergency lights pulsed along the floor, pointing toward a stairwell. Rachel ran ahead. When she reached the corner, a man stepped from an open utility room and seized her by the hair. He held a blade against her throat. "Drop the gun," he told Victor. Victor did. The pistol clattered across the floor. The attacker looked at Elena. The key. Adrian's weight shifted against her. "Don't," he said. The blade pressed deeper into Rachel's skin. A thin red line appeared. Elena removed the brass key from her pocket. "Let her go." The man smiled. "Throw it." Elena studied his stance. His right shoulder was lower than his left. The wrist holding the knife was stiff. Old injury. Limited rotation. She tossed the key high. His eyes followed it. Elena drove her heel into his damaged knee. Rachel dropped. Adrian tore himself from Elena's support and struck the man across the throat with the edge of his hand. Victor recovered his weapon and fired once. The attacker collapsed beside the key. Adrian swayed. Elena caught him before his head struck the wall. "You just reopened the wound." He had a knife. So do surgeons. I don't punch them. Victor retrieved the key. A folded slip of paper had fallen from the dead man's jacket. He opened it. One word was printed across the center. Orpheus. Adrian took the paper. The red emergency light caught the change in his eyes. Victor saw it too. "You know what it means. It was my mother's code name for the evidence operation. Who else knew that?" "Gabriel." Elena looked toward the dead attacker. "If my father is alive, why would he send men to kill us?" Adrian folded the paper once. "He may not be the one sending them." The stairwell door burst open. 4 armed men entered. Victor raised his gun, then stopped. The man at the front wore an expensive black coat over a hospital gown. Administrator Collins. A white bandage covered one side of his head. His hands were empty. Rachel stared at him. "Dad?" Collins looked at his daughter, but there was no warmth in his face. "You were supposed to leave the city. You told me Elena would be safe. I told you what was necessary." Rachel recoiled as if he had struck her. Collins turned to Adrian. "Give me the key." Adrian leaned against the wall, one hand pressed over his bleeding side. "You arranged room 7. I arranged a warning." Daniel Price is dead. That was Ferretti's mistake. Victor's pistol remained pointed at Collins. Luca Ferretti died 6 years ago. Collins gave a tired smile. No, a prisoner with similar dental work died 6 years ago. Adrian's gaze sharpened. You falsified the records. I signed them. Rachel looked at her father in horror. You work for him. I work for the city. No, Elena said. You work for whoever frightens you most. Collins's expression changed. He looked at her carefully. You sound like Gabriel. The name tightened every muscle in Elena's body. You knew my father. I knew him better than you ever will. Where is he? Collins glanced toward Adrian. That depends on whether DeLuca has finally remembered the truth. Adrian's face became unreadable. What truth? Collins laughed once. You still believe you watched your father's men sabotage your mother's car? I did. No, you watched Gabriel do it. Elena felt Adrian go still beside her. Collins continued, each word measured. Gabriel cut the brake line. Gabriel followed Sophia to the bridge. Gabriel pulled Adrian from the river. Victor looked at Adrian. You were in the car. Adrian did not respond. Elena turned toward him. You said you watched from the road. His silence answered first. Collins stepped closer. He was in the back seat. Sophia's car went through the barrier, with both of them inside. Gabriel jumped in after them. Rachel whispered, why would he sabotage the brakes and then save Adrian? Because the brakes were never meant to kill Sophia. Adrian's voice came low. They were meant to stop her from reaching the prosecutor. Collins nodded. Gabriel thought the car would fail before the bridge. Someone altered his work. Who? Elena asked. Collins looked at Victor. The corridor changed. Not visibly, but Elena felt it. Victor's gun lowered by less than an inch. Adrian saw it too. No, he said. Victor's face revealed nothing. Collins pointed at him. Ask your loyal protector why Sophia's steering locked. Rachel's father never finished the sentence. A shot struck him in the chest. Rachel screamed and ran toward him. Victor turned his pistol toward the stairwell, but the bullet had not come from there. It had come from behind Elena, from the dark utility room where the first attacker had been hiding. A wounded man leaned against the doorframe, weapon raised. Victor fired twice. The man fell. Collins collapsed into Rachel's arms. Blood spread across his shirt. She pressed both hands to the wound. Dad, stay with me. His eyes found Elena. Vault, he gasped. Where is my father? Collins coughed blood. Your father built the vault to trap the man who killed Sophia. Who killed her? His gaze moved past Elena, toward Adrian, then Victor. Neither of them knows. His hand closed around Rachel's sleeve. Green coat, he whispered. Don't trust the woman in the green coat. The strength left his fingers. Rachel bowed over him, making no sound at all. A phone began ringing inside his jacket. Elena reached for it. The screen showed no number. She answered. For a moment, there was only breathing. Then the same elderly woman spoke. You have the key. Adrian has the memory. Bring both to the old bank before dawn. Elena looked down the dark corridor. What happens at dawn? The woman's voice softened. Your father dies for the second time. The call ended. Rachel remained on the floor with her father's blood on her hands. The red emergency lights pulsed over the corridor, turning every face into a warning. Victor checked Collins's neck, then stood. He's gone. Rachel looked up at him. You shot him. I shot the man behind Elena. You wanted my father dead. Victor did not answer. That was answer enough. Adrian pushed away from the wall. His shirt was soaked dark at the side now, the bandage beneath it useless. Each breath came slower than the one before. "Elena," he said, "we leave." She stared at him. "You need surgery again. We have less than 3 hours until dawn. You may have less than 30 minutes if that wound opens further." He took one step and nearly fell. Elena caught him. His hand landed against her waist, hard and warm through her scrubs. For a moment, his forehead lowered near her temple as he gathered enough strength to stand. "I can keep moving," he said. "No, you can keep bleeding." Gunfire echoed 2 floors below. Victor retrieved Collins's phone and removed the battery. "The hospital is compromised. Ferretti's men control at least 2 exits. Rachel wiped her face with her sleeve. "My father kept an ambulance in the underground service bay. He said it was for emergencies." Victor glanced at her. "Keys?" "In his office. That wing is exposed." Rachel looked down at Collins's body. Then she reached beneath his collar and pulled a silver chain from his neck. A keycard hung from it. He never trusted officers. Adrian's gaze moved to the stairwell. "Service lift?" "Locked during an outage," Elena said. "There's a manual release in the maintenance room." Victor checked his ammunition. "Show me." Elena tightened Adrian's arm across her shoulders. "No shooting unless you have a target." Victor looked at the bodies in the corridor. They seemed to have settled their objections. They moved through the service hall, Rachel leading with the keycard while Victor covered the rear. Adrian's steps dragged. Elena felt the weight of him increase every few yards. "Stay awake," she said. "I am awake. You're answering too slowly. I'm considering whether you speak to every patient this way. Only the stubborn ones." His breath brushed her hair. "That must be exhausting." "It is tonight." They reached the maintenance room. Rachel swiped the card. The light flashed green. Inside, rows of breaker panels lined the walls. A red wheel controlled the service lift's emergency release. Victor turned it, while Elena lowered Adrian onto a workbench. She opened a cabinet and found industrial first aid supplies. "Shirt off." Adrian looked at her. "You heard me. I usually require dinner first." Rachel gave a broken laugh from the doorway, then covered her mouth as if ashamed of the sound. Elena cut Adrian's shirt open with trauma shears. The dressing had come loose. Blood ran along his ribs, gathering at the waistband of his trousers. Her hands moved quickly. She cleaned the wound, packed fresh gauze over the torn sutures, and wrapped a compression bandage around his torso. Adrian watched her face instead of the wound. "You're angry. You brought murder into a hospital. I did not choose where they found me. You're keeping something from me." His eyes shifted. That small movement confirmed it. Elena pulled the bandage tighter. Pain sharpened his expression. "Tell me." "This is not the time. My father may be alive. Your mother's death is tied to him. Someone selected me weeks before you were shot, and the only person who might explain it just died. There will not be a better time." Victor stopped turning the wheel. "Elena." She did not look at him. "What is Adrian hiding?" Victor's silence felt rehearsed. Adrian reached for his ruined shirt. Elena took it away. "You said my father disappeared the night Sophia died. That wasn't the whole truth." "No." "Where did he go?" Adrian's voice roughened. "He came to my family's house 3 days later." Elena's hands became still. "Why?" "He brought me the key." She looked at the brass key in Victor's possession. "You said it vanished with your mother." "I lied." Rachel stared at him. "Why?" "Because Gabriel made me promise never to admit I had seen him." Elena stepped back. "You were 15. "Yes." "What happened after he gave it to you?" "My father's guards found us." The hum of the emergency system filled the room. Adrian looked past Elena, seeing something far older than the steel walls around them. Gabriel put me through a window. He stayed behind to draw them away. Was he killed? I heard gunshots. That is not an answer. I never saw a body. Elena pressed her lips together. 22 years of silence opened inside her. Birthdays without a father. School forms with an empty line. Her mother changing the subject whenever Elena asked for a photograph. A funeral without a coffin when she was old enough to demand one. He could have come back, she said. Adrian lowered his gaze. Yes. The single word hurt more than denial. Victor finished releasing the lift. Metal groaned behind the wall. Adrian reached for Elena's hand. She moved it away. Something tightened in his face, but he let his hand fall. We need to go, Victor said. The service elevator descended without lights. They stood in darkness as cables creaked overhead. Elena kept one hand against Adrian's pulse. It was weak and too fast. At the basement level, the doors opened onto a narrow concrete passage. The underground loading area should have been crowded with supply carts and night staff. It was empty. A white ambulance waited near the far wall, engine running. Rachel stopped. I didn't turn it on. Victor raised his gun. The ambulance's rear doors opened. A woman stepped out wearing a green coat. Silver hair framed her face. A wooden cane tapped once against the concrete. Elena recognized the lavender perfume before the woman came close. Adrian went rigid beside her. Sophia, he whispered. The woman smiled at him. My son. No one moved. Adrian's face became a mask, stripped of every defense. My mother is dead. Your father needed the world to believe that. You were in the car. I was. I saw you sink. You were unconscious before Gabriel pulled me from the river. Adrian looked as though the floor had shifted beneath him. The woman stepped forward. He raised a pistol Elena had not seen him take from Victor. His hand shook. Not from weakness. Stop. Sophia stopped. You have his eyes, she said. Do not speak about him. He was cruel. I know. You left me with him. Her expression broke. I thought you were dead. You saw me dragged from the river. I saw Gabriel carrying a child. I never saw your face. Adrian's breathing changed. Elena reached for the gun. He moved it away. Sophia looked at her. You have Gabriel's courage. Where is my father? In the old bank. Alive? For now. Victor stepped between them. Why should we trust you? Sophia's gaze settled on him. You should not. Then she struck her cane against the concrete. The ambulance lights went out. Shots came from the darkness. Victor returned fire. Rachel dropped behind a supply cart. Elena pulled Adrian down as a bullet shattered the wall above them. Sophia disappeared behind the ambulance. Two armed men rushed from the side passage. Adrian shot one. Victor took the other. A third man came from behind Elena and wrapped an arm around her throat. Cold metal touched her jaw. Drop them, he shouted. Adrian's weapon lowered. Victor's did not. Let her go. The attacker tightened his grip. Elena could feel his pulse against her shoulder. Fast, untrained. She drove her elbow backward, but he anticipated it and slammed her against the ambulance. Pain burst across her cheek. Adrian's expression changed. The restraint left him. He crossed the distance before the attacker could reposition the gun. One hand seized the man's wrist. The other struck beneath his jaw. Bone cracked. The attacker fired into the ceiling. Adrian twisted the weapon free and drove the man to the ground. Then he kept hitting him. Once. Twice. Again. Elena, Rachel cried. Elena caught Adrian's arm. Enough. He did not hear her. She moved in front of him. Adrian, His fist stopped inches from her face. The rage in his eyes receded slowly. He looked at the blood on her cheek. His hand opened. "Did he hurt you?" "I'm standing. That was not my question. And this is not the time." His thumb hovered near the bruise without touching it. Then his knees buckled. Elena lowered him against the ambulance. The fresh bandage was soaked through. "Get him inside." Victor opened the rear doors. The ambulance interior contained no medical supplies. Instead, steel cases were bolted to the floor. One stood open. Inside were photographs, old ledgers, cassette tapes, and sealed envelopes bearing the names of judges, police commissioners, senators, and business leaders. The vault evidence. Rachel climbed inside. She already had it. "No," Victor said. "These are copies." Elena found a photograph near the top. It showed Sofia beside Gabriel Marquez. They stood in front of the old bank, their hands joined. Not like partners, like lovers. Elena looked at Adrian. He had seen it too. "My father and your mother?" Adrian's eyes closed. "I suspected. You knew. I knew enough to fear it." A speaker above the ambulance doors crackled. Luca Ferretti's voice filled the vehicle. "Thank you for gathering everyone." The doors slammed shut. Locks engaged outside. The ambulance began moving. Victor struck the rear doors with his shoulder. They did not give. Gas hissed from vents near the floor. Rachel covered her mouth. Elena searched the walls for a release, but the interior handles had been removed. Adrian lifted the pistol. "Stand back." He fired into the locking mechanism. The bullet ricocheted off reinforced steel. Victor pulled him down. Armor plating. The gas thickened. Elena tore fabric from Adrian's ruined shirt and pressed it over his mouth. "What about you?" he asked. "I'm not the one who was shot." His hand closed around hers. "Elena." The room tilted. Rachel collapsed first. Victor tried to reach the speaker and fell against the wall. Adrian pulled Elena toward him as her legs weakened. She felt his arm around her, shielding her head from the steel floor. The last sound she heard was Ferretti, laughing through the speaker. Elena woke in a chair, beneath a single hanging light. Her wrists were bound behind her. The old bank vault stretched around her, its marble walls stained by water and age. Rusted deposit boxes covered one side. A circular steel door stood open on the other. Rachel sat unconscious nearby. Victor was tied to a pipe. Adrian knelt in the center of the room with his hands chained above him. Blood dripped from his side onto the marble. A man in a grey suit stood behind him. Luca Ferretti. He was handsome in a narrow, lifeless way, with dark hair and burn scars climbing the left side of his neck. Sofia stood beside him. She no longer carried the cane. Elena looked at her. "You brought us here. You brought us here." Sofia's face remained calm. "Yes." Adrian raised his head. "Why?" She looked at him with something almost tender. "Because you were the only person Gabriel would die to protect." A door opened behind the rows of deposit boxes. Two guards dragged an older man into the light. His hair was white, his face was bruised. One eye had swollen shut. But Elena recognized him, not from memory. From herself. The shape of his mouth, the line between his brows, the same dark eyes she saw in the mirror every morning. Gabriel Marquez looked at her. Elena. Her breath disappeared. He took one step toward her. Ferretti pressed a gun to his back. Gabriel stopped. "I'm sorry," he said. Elena's eyes burned. "You're alive." "Yes." "All this time." His face folded beneath the weight of it. "Yes." Ferretti smiled. Family reunions are wasted without honesty. He placed a pistol in Sofia's hand. Then he turned to Adrian. Tell Elena who ordered her mother's murder. Adrian looked at Gabriel. Gabriel shook his head. Don't. Elena's voice broke through the room. My mother was murdered? Adrian closed his eyes. When you were 12, Elena remembered the kitchen fire. The smoke. Her mother collapsed beside the back door, while Elena tried to drag her across the tiles. The fire investigator had called it an accident. Ferretti stepped closer. Adrian knew the truth. Elena looked at him. You knew. Adrian's chains rattled as he shifted toward her. I learned 3 years later. And you never told me. I had never met you. You found me tonight. I didn't know who you were until I saw the key. Ferretti laughed softly. He is still lying. Adrian's gaze hardened. Ferretti crouched beside him. You knew exactly who she was. You have been paying her nursing tuition, her mother's medical debts, and the mortgage on her apartment through anonymous trusts for 11 years. Elena stared at Adrian. Every scholarship she had never applied for. Every hospital bill marked paid. Every notice that disappeared before eviction. You were watching me, protecting you, without telling me why. If you knew, they would know you mattered. Ferretti stood. And now everyone knows. Sofia raised the pistol. Not toward Gabriel, toward Elena. Adrian surged against the chains. Mother. Her hand trembled. Ferretti's smile widened. Choose, Sofia, the daughter of the man you loved, or the son who inherited the empire you tried to destroy. Sofia's finger tightened on the trigger. Adrian looked at Elena. For the first time, there was no strategy in his eyes. No command, no guarded distance, only fear for her. Shoot me, he said. Sofia's gaze moved to him. Adrian pulled against the chains until blood ran from his wrists. Let her live. Elena shook her head. No. He did not look away from Sofia. She has nothing to do with this. Ferretti pressed his gun against Gabriel's spine. She has everything to do with it. The vault door began to close. Steel groaned across marble. Ferretti stepped backward through the narrowing gap. Sofia remained inside with the pistol. Adrian strained against his chains. Sofia. She looked at her son, then at Elena. Tears gathered in her eyes. I waited 22 years to make this right. The steel door closed. The lock turned. Sofia raised the gun. Sofia fired. The bullet struck the chain above Adrian's wrists. Metal snapped. He dropped hard to the marble floor. Before Ferretti's men outside could understand what had happened, Sofia turned the pistol toward the vault door and fired twice into the electronic lock. Sparks burst from the panel. Elena, down, Gabriel shouted. Elena threw herself sideways as the vault lights died. Darkness swallowed the room. A second later, red emergency lamps flickered on near the floor. Sofia was already moving. She crossed to Victor, cut his restraints with a blade hidden inside her sleeve, and tossed him the pistol. You had a knife? Elena asked. I had to convince Ferretti I was harmless. Adrian dragged himself upright, one hand pressed against his wound. You aimed at her. I aimed where he could see. The steel door shuddered. Someone outside was forcing the damaged lock. Gabriel reached Elena and dropped to his knees behind her chair. His hands shook as he loosened the restraints around her wrists. She felt his breath break. I thought about this moment every day. Elena pulled free and turned toward him. You had 11 years. His face tightened. I know. You watched me bury her. I watched from across the cemetery. The words struck deeper than she expected. You were there. I wanted to come to you, But you didn't. If Ferretti had known you were my daughter, he would have used you to reach the vault. He found me anyway. Gabriel lowered his head. Yes. The vault door groaned again. Victor searched the room and found a maintenance hatch behind a row of deposit boxes. Passage here. Rachel woke with a gasp. She looked around wildly until she saw the blood on her hands. My father. Elena knelt beside her. I'm sorry. Rachel's eyes closed. For a moment, grief emptied her face. Then she stood. My father had access codes for the old bank. Ferretti made him maintain the underground systems. She took the silver chain and keycard from her pocket. This might open the passage. Victor swiped it over a concealed reader. Nothing happened. Rachel tried again. A green light appeared. The hatch unlocked. Adrian stared at her. You knew this was here? No. But my father always said the city had doors beneath its doors. The vault entrance burst inward. Gunfire ripped across the room. Victor returned fire while Sophia pulled Rachel toward the maintenance hatch. Gabriel lifted Elena behind a marble column. Adrian remained exposed. Elena, go, he shouted. She saw the blood beneath him. He had no strength left for another fight. Elena ran toward him. A bullet shattered stone beside her face. Gabriel caught her arm. You'll be killed. He saved me. So did your mother. Elena looked at him. Gabriel released her. It was the first choice he had allowed her to make. She crossed the room low and fast, reached Adrian, and hooked his arm over her shoulders. Again? He asked through clenched teeth. Do not make this a habit. I was planning a quieter second meeting. Together they reached the hatch. Victor fired his final round, then followed. Sophia entered last. She pulled a lever inside the passage. A steel security barrier dropped between them and Ferretti's men. The gunfire became a dull thunder behind it. The passage descended beneath the bank in a narrow spiral. Old electrical cables ran along the walls. Water dripped from pipes overhead. Adrian stumbled twice. The third time, he did not recover. Elena lowered him onto the steps. His pulse was faint now. We need pressure, fluids, and a surgeon. We need the ledger, he said. The ledger will not matter if you die. It matters more if I do. Sophia crouched beside him. The original records are beneath the central chamber. Gabriel hid them before your father's men reached the bank. Gabriel looked at her. I hid half. Victor turned. What happened to the other half? Sophia's eyes moved toward him. You took it. Silence filled the stairwell. Victor's face remained still, but his hand moved toward the weapon at his back. Adrian saw it. Elena, move. Victor drew. Gabriel struck his arm aside. The shot hit the ceiling. Sophia drove her knife into Victor's shoulder, but he caught her by the throat and slammed her against the wall. Adrian forced himself upright. Why? Victor looked at him with something close to sorrow. Because your mother's records would have destroyed everything. My father's empire, our survival. Victor kicked Gabriel down the stairs. Elena moved toward him, but Adrian caught her wrist. Victor pulled the knife from his shoulder. Blood ran down his sleeve. I was 24, he said. Your father owned me. My brother owed him money. My mother was sick. He promised to clear the debt if I changed the steering mechanism on Sophia's car. Adrian's face emptied. You killed her. I believed I had. Sophia stood slowly, one hand at her throat. You watched my car go over that bridge. Victor looked at her. I spent 22 years protecting your son. You protected your guilt. I kept him alive. You kept him useful. Victor's eyes hardened. He built order out of chaos. Your evidence will destroy the judges, officers, unions, and businesses holding this city together. Rachel stared at him. You sound like my father. Your father understood that systems survive because good people make terrible compromises. No, Elena said. They survive because terrible people rename fear. Victor raised his pistol toward her. Adrian stepped between them. He could barely stand, yet his body covered hers completely. Victor's hand shook. I taught you everything. Adrian looked at the man who had guarded him since childhood. Not everything. He struck the emergency valve beside the stairs. A burst of pressurized steam exploded from the wall. Victor turned his face. Gabriel charged him. The two men crashed against the railing. The pistol slid across the steps and stopped beside Rachel. She picked it up. Victor froze. Rachel aimed at him with both hands. My father died because of you. No, Victor said. He died because Ferretti cleans up weakness. You knew the shooter was there. Victor said nothing. Rachel's finger tightened. Elena touched her arm. If you kill him now, he becomes another secret. Rachel's breath trembled. Then she lowered the weapon. Let him answer in daylight. Victor lunged. The railing broke beneath his weight. Gabriel reached for him. For 1 second, their hands met. Victor looked up at Gabriel, the man whose life he had ruined, whose family he had scattered. Then he released his grip. He fell into the darkness below. No sound came back. Adrian collapsed. Elena caught him and pressed both hands over his wound. Stay with me. His eyes struggled to focus. You keep saying that. Because you keep trying to leave. His fingers closed weakly around hers. I paid the trusts because I saw you once. She looked at him. At the cemetery. You were 12. You stood beside your mother's grave and refused to cry until everyone else had gone. Elena's throat tightened. You watched me. From the gate. Why? Because Gabriel saved my life. Protecting you was the only way I knew to repay him. Gabriel stood behind them, his face broken by shame. Adrian looked at Elena. Then it stopped being debt. The words were barely audible. She held pressure harder against the wound. What did it become? His thumb moved across her knuckles. Hope. His eyes closed. The pulse beneath Elena's fingers vanished. No. She lowered him flat. Adrian. Nothing. Elena tilted his head, cleared his airway, and began compressions. Sophia turned away. Gabriel stared at the floor. Do not stand there, Elena shouted. Find the chamber. There may be medical supplies. Rachel ran down the remaining stairs. Elena continued pressing against Adrian's chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. His blood covered her hands again, just as it had outside the hospital. You do not get to choose this, she whispered. You do not get to protect me by dying. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Again. Her arms burned. Come back. Adrian's body remained still. Then he coughed. A weak pulse returned beneath her fingers. Elena sat back, shaking. His eyes opened a fraction. You sound angry, he breathed. She laughed once, broken and relieved. I am furious, Rachel called from below. I found it. The central chamber was hidden behind a stone wall beneath the stairs. Inside stood an old desk, shelves of tapes, photographs, bank records, signed agreements, and a military field kit containing sealed medical supplies. Elena started an IV and stabilized Adrian as best she could. Gabriel opened a steel drawer. The original ledger lay inside, wrapped in oilcloth. Sophia placed the brass key into a slot on its cover. The lock clicked. Names filled every page. Ferretti, judges, police captains, contractors, Adrian's father, and Victor Hale. At the back was a sealed recording made by Elena's mother 3 days before her death. Gabriel inserted the cassette into an old player. Her voice filled the chamber. If this is being heard, someone has found the truth. Gabriel is not responsible for Sophia's crash. Victor Hale changed the steering. Luca Ferretti ordered the kitchen fire. Administrator Collins falsified hospital, prison and death records under threat to his daughter. Sophia survived. Adrian was a child. Elena knows nothing. Elena closed her eyes. Her mother had known. She had left proof. A monitor on the wall flickered to life. Ferretti appeared on the screen. "You found the records," he said. "Unfortunately, no one outside this bank will ever see them." A countdown appeared beneath his face. 4 minutes. Explosives. Rachel moved to the control panel. "My father taught me the emergency network." Her fingers raced over the keys. "He said evidence is useless unless it exists in more than one place." The upload system came alive. Files began transferring to federal prosecutors, newspapers, internal affairs, and 3 international watchdog organizations. Ferretti's smile disappeared. "You have no idea what happens when this city loses its protectors." Adrian, pale on the floor, looked at the screen. They were never protectors. The timer reached 1 minute. Rachel completed the transmission. Sophia pulled a final lever. A flood tunnel opened beneath the chamber. They carried Adrian through it as explosions tore through the old bank above them. By sunrise, every major news network had the ledger. By noon, federal agents arrested Luca Ferretti at a private airfield. Within 3 weeks, 38 officials were indicted. Rachel testified about her father's involvement and his attempts to protect her. Gabriel surrendered voluntarily, accepting responsibility for sabotaging Sophia's brakes, even though he had never intended anyone to die. Sophia testified beside him. Neither asked for forgiveness. They asked only for the truth to remain intact. Adrian spent 2 months recovering under armed guard. Elena visited after every shift. Not because of debt, not because of danger, because each time she entered his room, he listened before speaking. Because he remembered every promise. Because he never again mistook protection for control. One evening, she found him standing by the hospital window without assistance. "You're not cleared for that," she said. "I was waiting for my nurse. I am not your nurse anymore." His grey eyes rested on her. "No." He held out the brass key. The serpent along its shaft had been polished clean. "The vault is gone," Elena said. "This opens something else now." "What?" "A clinic." He handed her a set of documents. The building stood in her old neighborhood. Free trauma care, addiction treatment, legal support for families affected by organized crime. Her name appeared at the top as medical director. Elena looked at him. "You built this?" "We built it." "I did not agree." "I hoped you might." She read the final page. The clinic would be funded by the legal liquidation of every DeLuca company tied to criminal activity. Adrian had given up the empire. "What happens to you?" she asked. "I keep the legitimate businesses. I testify. I spend the rest of my life repairing what my family damaged. That could take a long time. I am counting on it." She set the documents aside. "And what are you asking from me?" He did not reach for her. He waited. "A chance," he said. "No secrecy, no watching from a distance, no decisions made in your name." Elena stepped closer. "Respect?" "Yes. Yes." "Trust?" "If I earn it." "Protection?" "Only when requested." "Understanding?" "I am still learning." "Sacrifice?" "I already gave away several hotels." She smiled despite herself. Admiration? His voice softened. That began the night you ordered a dying man to stop being difficult. She placed her hand against his chest, above the scar. His heart beat steadily beneath her palm. And love. Adrian covered her hand with his. When you are ready. Elena studied the man who had once ruled through silence. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed him. Not as a reward, not as a rescue, as a choice. Outside the window, morning light spread across Chicago. For the first time in decades, the city's most dangerous secrets no longer belonged to men hiding underground. And Adrian DeLuca, who had survived bullets, betrayal, and an empire built on fear, stood quietly beside the woman who had taught him that power meant nothing without truth. This time, neither of them looked away.